afternoon and welcome into the Paladins Pro Circuit. Finch and Gore Miser here as we will be starting off in Europe as always. And Gore, things have been incredibly close, it feels like, these last 3 weeks. I mean, this last phase in general. And Europe has been no exception to that. What are you expecting from all these sets we're going to be seeing today as well as here in Europe?
Man, what's interesting is I think we're seeing a lot of teams that are getting challenged overall, which is just better overall for the league. I think that what we've been able to see. Specifically, you look towards Brazil, like Parallax Gaming, I believe it's Yoinkers here in Europe, as well as Pickled Pepper there in North America, who have so far kind of solidified themselves up towards the top, and you can see, Yoinkers is hanging out up there, but I don't think any of them, save for maybe Pickled Peppers, have been able to go through without being challenged too much, right? A lot of these teams have been able to lose a few maps, whether it's Yoinkers, you're losing a set. It's showcasing, I think, again, how close this is. I mean, even the fact that the bottom team has a win. It's only one win. Their map plus minus is -14, but you have to look at the positive there, which is the fact that I believe in Phase 1 we had teams going with 0 throughout it. So being able to kind of step up, everyone's challenging everyone. It's making things a lot more interesting.
It is, man. 2nd through 4th, right? There's only 2 games between them. It's so close right now. So let's take a look at these map bans here. Gore Ice Mines and Frog Isle all taken off the table. I think Warder's Gate and Fish Market perhaps not that big a surprise, as Brightmarsh will be the first map that we're going here to this time. And this is an interesting map because it feels like one of those closed-in maps. Those apartment side fights are so interesting and so critical, but it's also one where it's not too hard to get that conversion off the back of maybe 1 or 2 good fights. We have seen people kind of steamroll this map.
Yeah, I really like this as a first pick map, because if you know it really well, or unless you have a strategy for it coming in, then you have the potential to find a 4-0, but it's also a good heat check, right? If the team pushes you to 7 points on Brightmarsh, you know that you're going to have to buckle down and try to pull something else out to, later in a map period or a different champion, something that you're going to have to do to shift it up. And of course, right now, for a lot of these players, it's get it while you can, because, with the Vora patch, Brightmarsh is getting taken out. You got to enjoy it while you have it. And it is going to make me sad just now knowing, like, it just kind of sunk in, because I said it out loud. I watched yesterday, and I was like, man, I'm going to miss Brightmarsh. And it just clicked that Serpent Beach and Brightmarsh are both going to be taken away from me, and I don't know what I'm going to do in that world. It's going to be a very dark time.
It is. We won't have any of those great maps that we love to normally watch. Let's take a look, though, at these bans that we got going on right now here. Rom being banned and Ruckus, those make some sense as those 2 off tanks. So valuable, both as DPS and as that tank presence, too, so you want to get rid of both of those. The Shaw ban is a bit surprising to me here, but not this Vivian ban. But Gore, all kinds of stuff. The Genos and the Corvus, the Victor, all going to be making it through here. Do you like these top 4 bans?
I like them. Again, like you said, the Shaw ban is one of those ones that stands out a little more than all the others. I think Ruckus, when you're in Europe, you expect it at this point. The same thing, Vivian, in my mind, almost, I equate the 2 together when it comes down to it, at least in terms of playstyle. But Shaolin is one of those interesting, kind of, like, he's not top of the top in terms of DPS, but I think on Brightmarsh he kind of escalates, because your Victor isn't quite as good here. He's still going to be able to do a lot of damage, but the range doesn't play as well into him. The same thing for all the snipers, like all the hit scan that you would typically go to, save for maybe Andro, isn't really at the top of the top here, and with Vivian banned out, it does kind of shuffle things up. I really like seeing him at least get some notice throughout these teams.
It feels like that's what we're seeing. It's just crazy to me that we're in a world where we're saying we don't want to see it with off tanks like Ruckus and Rom, but hey, Ash is okay with shoulder bash and assert dominance. I'm happy dealing with all that stuff. Obviously, that's what gets left over here for Interstellar, but that does mean that now Yoinkers get to take the best point tank in the game in Inara alongside Victor, whose backline damage can be hard to contest at times, has that barrage as well. But sort of as you mentioned, maybe Brightmarsh not Victor's best map. It certainly can be strong in those defenses, but maybe Interstellar don't feel too bad about it.
And I also think it's interesting, and this happens pretty much anytime you have a top pick, champion, but he's got a 47% win rate. Like, he's starting to lose a little bit more often than what we saw at the beginning of the year and at the beginning of this phase. And I think that's just the glory side of when someone's been around that long, when you're seeing him played virtually every game, you start to pick up how you deal with them, right? Like, at some point, it's just kind of beaten into you. Like, if you lose to Victor 4-0 30 times in a row, that 31st game, it's going to be a 4-1. Then eventually it's going to be a 4-2, right? You figure out his tendencies, how people are playing him. I think Yoinkers getting Inara, Victor, Andro is still kind of ridiculous. They are still the #1 team, and you do want to strip some power away. But like you said, when you get something like Atlas, Corvus, Ashe, Atlas is the only one of those I'm on the fence about, and it's just because depending on the player who picks him up, he's either fantastic or terrible. So you really do have to hope that Interstellar are kind of going towards the former, the fantastic side of play, because there's a lot to deal with on the other side.
Certainly scary to think that on this map, where the Andro can make good use of his verticality, he'll be buffed by the Genos during all of that, right? It is certainly scary for Interstellar to now think about, but okay. Now this Strix comes in, and you hope that the Ashe and the Atlas can control enough space that this Strix can deal a lot of damage, but at this point, I'm a little bit worried. I mean, who's going to be moving up alongside them at this point? I mean, perhaps they'll be locking in one more here that can bring some clarity to this score, but how do you like this draft from Interstellar so far, and what they're going to be looking to do together?
Well, I feel like a good flex. Yeah, I was trying to figure out. I was like, a flank has to come in here because, like, if you're running something like Strix, you need someone aggressive. And it was just like, Koga, maybe you could go in with it. And I was like, Lex is Brazil only right now, so no one is going to be picking him up over here in Europe. So I was like, who else is there? Of course, I forgot about Buck. The shotgun is incredibly potent. This is an interesting map for him. This is one of those weird moments where I can reference the fact that Heroic Leap and Pip's Jump are very similar. Both of them function pretty well on this map for getting to the high ground. And so I think Buck is going to be able to contest Androxus, maybe not really significantly while he's up in the sky hovering, but at least enough that he could get up there and maybe get a couple of shots, force him to be uncomfortable overall. Strix then theoretically can pop him out of the sky, but now there's a Maeve to deal with. I don't know. I really like Yoinkers' draft for its aggression.
Yeah, the triple deeps coming through here now for Yoinkers, the Andro, Victor, and the Maeve, and scary they will be. These two flankers sort of picking their own lanes and using the Midnight to move under cover of darkness, literally, and really force Interstellar to have to look in too many directions. I mean, hopefully the Strix can just shoot who shows up in the crosshairs, but for this Buck, right, and who he's choosing to try and spend his time taking care of, it's going to be difficult for him to try and keep this Yoinkers team in line.
I don't know, I'm just pumped. I always like seeing Androxus on this map. Maeve, though, she disappeared for a few weeks. I think a lot of teams, specifically the console-oriented teams, anybody who decided to pick up the sticks and they're playing on their controller or whatever, had that trouble of, how do you deal with Eevee and Maeve? And so, phase 1 for weeks at a time, you could tell which teams were which because if Eevee and Maeve were under one side, it kind of clued you in. But then they just disappeared from the meta. I think it became because Victor, if you look at Vivian, you look at your Strixes, your Kinessas, they can, if they're in the right proper map and good positioning, usually they're going to plug the flank before they get there. At least they're going to try. I think Victor and Vivian do it a little bit better than the snipers do. But they don't really have anything that's going to stop this Maeve. I think she's enabled pretty well here. Like you said, Midnight's a really good opener. Worst case scenario, Strix, if you're trying to shoot Maeve, Victor and Andro have a free time. One of those gets locked down by Buck. You still have that third damage to really cause some trouble. Nobody on Interstellar is as strong a point tank as someone like Inara. So you're really, I don't want to say just playing with fire. I think Ashe is going to be solid here, but there's only so much you can do when Inara stands there and doesn't die for the umpteenth time.
Gordon, it sounds like you don't think Interstellar can win the flank or the point. I don't know what that leaves for them on the back end of that one. Who's the one that you think is going to be moving, though, forward sort of alongside this Buck? Is that more the Ashe or the Atlas that is going to be that one that's moving up, being aggressive? And who are they leaving back behind on the point to sort of go toe-to-toe with this Inara?
What I'd like to see is probably Buck Atlas on the side. I think that's going to have a lot more control. That hit scan as well will get you into a good position to either shoot at Maeve or Andro or Victor, since Victor is going to be kind of iffy on where they send him. I think Andro, Maeve, you wouldn't be surprised to see him go like dockside for a long flank to get back to the Strix, and that would open up Atlas Buck to be able to get hyper aggressive, two very, very destructive headshots as well. If Atlas hits one and Buck hits one, it's going to two-tap literally anyone on the squad outside of Inara, so you have to be very careful, I think, if you're Yoinkers going into that amount of damage. Again, there's a lot of error, if you miss those shots at all, then I think it's going to start to fall apart just a little bit for Interstellar, but they're both pretty tanky as well, so they can withstand having a little bit of leniency for those shots. And Ashe, she's better at point. Like, I'm going to knock this Inara off the point, at least for a little bit, and try to get some control. But I think her bully and the way her shots are shaped also stops someone like Victor from being able to just peer in through the window onto the objective and feel safe the entire time they're doing it.
Makes sense to me, Gore. I am persuaded. We are ready to move on to Brightmarsh for map number 1. Yoinkers and Interstellar, number 1 up against number 3. And we said it coming into this, it feels like Yoinkers have a really scary track. The triple DPS with all this damage potential might be enough to overwhelm Interstellar.
This is completely tangential, but I just noticed there are signs that say, like, don't jump in the water on the side of the docks. You'd think they'd build a full fence over there for safety concerns. I don't know. I don't know if it's OSHA compliant. We'll have to get them in on that one. But it's just it's fun to note that that is an area in this map. Normally it's something that Khan maybe comes up, you throw someone off the edge, but that's somewhere where Ashe can actually have some prowess. If you're running, not a lot of people do this, but if you're running like max knockback, you could knock people off of this objective or off of the map entirely, potentially find yourselves a KO just in that regard.
Well, Yoinkers, no big surprise, already have percent lead, 39 in the back pocket, and first blood. Prosper able to get the damage onto Barcode. See you later to Snaze as well. As Prosper in this apartment side fight finds a double to start things off. That's 50% for them already. He's not done. A killing spree as he's able to get back to Invali and take care of the Ashe as well. Now they can start getting forward, putting on the aggressive zone. I don't even know if Interstellar are going to find another touch court.
Man, so I forgot to factor one very important thing into all of this, and that was the fact that I didn't even pay attention to Logi on Andro, but more importantly, Prosper on Victor. I don't know. That's going to be hard to fight against in general. I think you could have all of the advantages in the world, and that's going to be difficult. But like you said, they didn't get to touch the point too often. I'm always hesitant when I start seeing a team win fights like this right after the objective, because it almost feels like it favors the team that just grabbed the point. They're going to be able to back, spin those extra credits if they have enough from the kills to be able to get something like a tier 2 item, maybe just a tier 1 flavor on the side, depending on whether or not they're trying to save up. But it just opens them up to regroup and come back in with maybe more force than they had around the mid-fight.
This is a bit of an aggressive push, but could it come back to bite them? Atsu gets the first kill. They take care of the Atlas, piloted by Snaze, and fight their way back towards mid. Another kill comes through into Invali. Barcode can't make it around the corner. What a shot there from Atsu to be able to find that last kill. So now they can indeed move into the post-push with some momentum. A little bit of that time eaten away, about 30 seconds successfully stripped away there by Interstellar, but now Yoinkers able to push through with their whole squad topped up and healthy. And a couple of ultimates ready to go if they want to drop something like the Accursed Arm or the Midnight, or even better, probably the Genos ultimate, which feels like one you could use, but it'll be Midnight that comes out first. The ultimate there, camouflaged under the Dead of Night, does not find a kill, but Snaze falls anyway as Etsu gets the damage. Yoinkers so far are making this push look pretty decent.
You know, stop banning this Buck. He's just sweating when that comes through, right? Like, you see nothing, you see nothing, you see nothing. All of a sudden, your screen is lit up orange because you know you're about to get sniped by a Genos. And you do get a little nervous, even though you know you can just walk out of it. But this is the amount of pressure this squad brings. And, you know, Etsu, now that he's gone, maybe going to finally find some pressure back for Interstellar. But opening up so much for this Maeve gives this Andro a lot of capabilities. And Andro, the only person on this map who can actually go around through the kind of secret apartment, potentially find some high ground change if he really wants to. It looks like he's just going to be taking the fight head on.
Yoinkers have already used the barrage. Prosper used it to get that first kill, then takes care of stop banning on the backside of that as well. So Snaze, maybe it could be him that locks down Etsu, but so far it's not working. It's being challenged now by the Inara directly on the card as we start to move into overtime. Etsu gets rid of Snaze. That means a lot of this has to be done by the Ashe. They do get the kill on Etsu at the very least, but Void Grip brings Invali up to where he can be shot. Logi goes to the back to get the Corvus from helping out. Even finds the Trace kill on him as well, but maybe BK can do enough. They're willing to use the Accursed Arm farm to get the double kill, maybe even get this third one. It does come through, but Snaze just barely drops down in time to stop this payload from getting converted. A double kill for him, but Prosper still here and putting out damage, but Invalai has made his way back out to touch in trade, so the overtime still ticking, and maybe this will be enough for Interstellar to hold on, but ADC in the back ends up dropping. Invalai still alive, but just barely as there's too much damage from Good Lad, and maybe Yoinkers gonna find a way to do it, but the defense comes through just barely at the tail end there, Gore. They used a lot of ultimates, did Yoinkers, but Interstellar defend.
I mean, that was insane to see them just constantly throwing. I mean, like, Barrage might be the name of the ability for Victor, but that was just a barrage of players, like just one after another, constantly running forward and able to make sure they keep that on their toes. Snaze, hands down, I want to say maybe MVP of that one, buying just enough time, not only with the wall, but maybe the perfect rewind, gets to one hit away from death and then rewinds all the way back to full health. Then you have to kill this Atlas a second time. By the time he does finally go down, you got the respawns there for Interstellar. Really well played, I think, by Yoinkers to keep that aggression going. They recharge Midnight, but like you said, they used a lot of ults, so they're still at a deficit.
That's right, Barrage and Accursed Arm all used towards the tail end, but they've got the Midnight and Through Time and Space combo to work here for them once more. The Yoinkers are able to at least force Interstellar back into a bit more of a defensive positioning. They again got the early percentage, and Invalai pushing forward on his own is met by Etsu, so maybe stop banning to get a bit involved. He does leap forward, but can't afford to step into this mid-room core, so it's still controlled by Yoinkers.
And this is where that problem comes. I think Ash Atlas is very strong, and especially on a map like, I want to say Fish Market, you find a lot of control. Bazaar, Shattered Desert. But here, where you're on Brightmarsh and Nara throws up a wall, stops you from walking in on one side of the map, and then lets the carries go through and do the rest. Yoinkers find themselves once again just leading, not only percentage, but I mean, that's essentially a full team wipe. That Strix just respawned. And so they're going to be able to hold this back pretty much full force.
Yeah, they certainly will, right? I mean, at 87% from this positioning, it's pretty difficult for Interstellar to find any kind of touch. Barcode does get a kill as Yoinkers win their second mid-fight in a row. This is another fight where on the back of the mid-cap, Interstellar at least able to find a couple of pretty good picks here, Gore, to go their way, but it's not even as clean as it was last time. Yoinkers are here in full force this time and can maybe look to get a little bit of progress on the back of this cap.
I mean, that's the downside, right? Last time you win a fight around the mid, you still barely hold on to that objective. I mean, it's overtime times a million, and you just happen to have that respawn proximity the defenders get. Now you're losing that first minute of time that you spent defending. You're essentially a full minute of overtime. That might as well be equated to this, right, for Yoinkers, where they're already making it further in this first minute than they had by the 1 minute countdown left during the last round, and that gets a little muddled in the middle, but just they're 30 seconds ahead of themselves now, so they can get aggressive and play this a lot more just push-oriented, aggressive, get in their face, jump to the high ground, take it away from Interstellar, and force them to make some decisions.
Snaze and stop banning, able to get around that wall and take care of Good Lad. And sort of the point that you're making is that Yoinkers have time now to make maybe a riskier play than they would have otherwise and still have time to reset, but they don't need it. Logic gets rid of Invalai, and Etsu is able to take care of Barcode. That just leaves the Corvus plus tanks to try and hold this off, and that's barely working. Snaze is able to use that ability to go through time, but is not enough to elude the pressure from Yoinkers. Good Lad gets last bit of damage. Etsu tries to move forward, but Barcode coming out of spawn finds the snipe. Logic comes around the bottom, gets some damage onto Invalai. They see stop banning when he turns around and gets the double kill, and Barcode gets hunted down as well. That's the Genos, and that's the conversion. Yoinkers able to find the push to 3-1, and suddenly Interstellar in an awful position.
All right, Finch, hear me out here.
Okay.
Atlas, when he uses his second chance, is traveling backwards in time on his own personal timeline. Genos' ult is through time and space. Atlas should be able to get shot by Genos' ult when he's reversing, right? I feel like they intersect somewhere in there. I don't know. I think you're not immune to that when at least one of these champions, I think, is quite literally a cosmic god, if I remember the lore correctly for Genos. Just happens to be this ascended guy who came down from the stars. I don't know, sounds an awful lot like a god to me. But as of right now, I don't know if he needs the boost. The 15th streak has the Luminaries, keeping Prosper, Logi going. Etsu might not have the streak burning, but Midnight is going to enable them to get aggressive. If they, at any point during this fight, feel like they're losing pressure, especially with comeback mechanic on the other side, pop that Midnight and you're right back in it, or use it at the beginning, just find some frags.
Perhaps they can find some frags. Etsu gets to the backline looking to find this Strix. Makes it back out of there just barely, but finally some kills starting to go the way of Interstellar. Prosper and Etsu both go down. And now with that fast cap working for Interstellar, perhaps this could be their first mid-win. Barcode able to actually get into aggressive positioning and find a snipe on the Friezo in the back. That takes care of him, and now it's going to be pretty difficult for Yoinkers to make their way through. They got double flank, so a touch not impossible, but how do they get this Inara all the way back through?
Well, she's one hit away from dead, and Inara not on a mount. She's not going to touch that point anytime soon. It's getting in there for someone like Etsu Logi to try and get that overtime to walk good lad forward.
Well, it doesn't quite end up working. Interstellar in the end are able to get that mid cap and a couple kills on the backside, but Prosper does get rid of stop banding. But for the most part, Interstellar should be able to keep going. Now, a Curse Arm was already used. Barrage is postured as if it wants to be used. No shots came out, I believe, so he's back to 60%. But he ends up falling right away, so no chance to build anymore. Good Light gets a return kill, but this is the best that Interstellar have looked all map so far. And maybe they can turn this into a decent bit of offense.
I mean, if they can continue, like you said, this amount of pressure, I think Ashe, Atlas are really good for causing trouble. And Nara, again, going to be able to hold the point, but right now you don't need to win the payload push first. You need to get aggressive, force someone like Etsu, Logi into an uncomfortable position. Then you carry up whatever you have afterward. Unfortunately, when you stand in ults like that, you get shots like that from Prosper and Etsu. I just don't know that there's much you can do about it.
No, it really isn't. Prosper ends up getting the double. Logi gets one as well, and suddenly Interstellar gets stalled out, Gore, but plenty of time left for them to work with. Try and push their way back through. Prosper taking a ton of damage and has to retreat. We haven't gotten a chance to see Interstellar on offense, but when it's clicking, how would you expect this offense to look? I guess like that, as Barcode gets the double, tries to get aggressive and find one more, comes around the back looking for this kill to Prosper, but Prosper was ready and shuts him down. Maybe they can find Prosper out in the open. ADC able to get back behind him, and yes, Prosper will go down.
Honestly, well, it sounds weird to say it, but it does go a lot like this, right? Get Ashe aggressive, get this Atlas aggressive, and then Buck can go wherever he wants. He's Buck, so he's going to be healing just fine until COT 3s are fully built, which I think Yoinkers were just off of going into this round. But then you just let Barcode do whatever Barcode wants. As long as you have that, he's literally a quarterback sitting in the pocket, right? Like, no one should be able to touch him. You've got at least 3 bodyguards beside you and a support to make sure you stay safe and alive. You just get the damage done. They'll clean up the kills afterward, and this payload will keep moving forward because of you.
Well, we're up to the final choke point, and Etsu was just removed, trying to get aggressive. Snaze setting his team up with a bit of a numbers advantage. Invalide trying to take some ground here on the left side and see what he can find. Getting good damage into Prosper in the back, and just needs someone to follow up on it a bit. Prosper is safe. There it is. Barcode gets the angle and is able to find the double. Prosper and Logi both go down, but only 5 seconds left to find a way to get this conversion. Snaze is right there on it, trying to roll it in, but this Inara, good lad, is going to be a huge problem with his ability to contest. We're in OT, but the damage coming through, stop fanning, was able to loop around. That's the only tank available for Yoinkers, and suddenly Interstellar get the conversion. We're going into this final mid-fight 3-3.
And all teams have 4 ults available, a little bit closer at charging through time and space than what we're going to see out of the other side. That 85% there for Barcode. Although, being a sniper, being able to find damage, you're going to hit 100%. So essentially, act as if all 10 ults are available. And then it just comes down to the suite. You get things like the Assert Dominance you had highlighted during picks and bans. Very, very solid at keeping Ashe alive, not only alive, but aggressive and potentially contesting this Inara on the objective. Atlas has some exiles, so much like the last time we saw Midnight used, he can maybe take a couple of those key factors off of the field, and then all of a sudden they're not able to collapse in as well. And because I believe you have some CC immunity while you're shooting that, you also don't get affected by it. So Atlas being able to maybe find that kind of game-saving play, shut down someone like Logi or Etsu or Prosper, whichever, or all 3 if he can find the right shots and the right angles, to really reduce that Midnight into nothing more than a few seconds pause for your team.
Gonna need some kind of way to nullify Yoinkers' backline. Etsu and Prosper in particular have been the problems. So what will be the answer? Snaze moves forward first, takes a ton of damage, and has to start retreating. But Stop Banning is trying to make his way back to Prosper, who's low, and boy, does that work. Takes the Victor out of there right away. It's not a bad way for this fight to start, but it's not stopping Good Lad from just capping percent. They're up to 54 already. He pays a hefty health toll to make it happen, though, so ADC drops the ultimate in response. That forces Etsu away. Not before Etsu gets the kill on the barcode. Not bad at all here from Yoinkers with all this percent and these kills. The ultimate's not enough to get back there towards this Corvus, but Stop Banning falls as well. Now Evil Eye has to use the shoulder bash to reposition. The damage from ADC feels irrelevant as Prosper gets Snaze and Yoinkers regain control of the mid. Maybe Barcode can retake some ground if he can find some snipes. Looking for Etsu, but unable to find it. Now they're into the 80s. Now they're into the 90s are Yoinkers, and Barcode can't even look into mid. Big kill, a cursed arm coming out as well. The overtime ticking, but nobody nearby. And that should be enough for Yoinkers to take Brightmarsh.
The minute you force that second chance, I think good shots and a good punch from Laji at the very end just to be able to say, you're not getting anywhere nearby here, Alice. Again, good couple of shots just to make sure that he had to force that second chance and reverts so far back in the map. So he's not able to touch down. I think it's just good aggression overall from Yoinkers. I think as much as it sounds weird to say this, it's almost beneficial for them. The minute they lost that round 3 point fight, just let that payload roll through. I like the fact that they did defend as much as they could, but it doesn't really hurt you. Now they're tied 3-3. They only won a comeback mechanic fight and a really close overtime defense. You have a little bit of confidence, I think, going into fights like that, knowing that, again, Prosper logic is on something like Victor. Etsu had a phenomenal game there on Maeve, and Laji's on a signature there in Andros. So you're comfortable, I think, if Yoinkers playing around with that 3-3 score line.
Barcode able to do enough eventually for them with 16-15, but not enough to win. I thought Snaze played really well in this one, though. It's hard to ask for more from him. Stop Banning had some good moves, too, some good positioning moments. It was able to take care of Prosper at the start of that last mid-fight, but Gore, it just was not enough in the end. I think, as anticipated, the overwhelming pressure of this Yoinkers draft eventually was able to get the better of Interstellar, and they weren't able to leverage that double frontline composition better than Yoinkers was able to leverage the triple DPS. Even if Prosper went down early, or even if Etsu went down early, then you still have a Logi to deal with. You still have the other one to deal with, and eventually, Interstellar just didn't have the answers.
We've seen it kind of fluctuate, the meta, having triple DPS, a standard composition, triple tank sometimes coming through, all finding mixed success throughout all of it. But I think if you are running something to more standard, 2 tanks, 2 damage, 1 support, to try and counter a triple DPS, you almost have to have a Nara. I think that Ashe first pick is very strong, but I think you're not having something like a Nara, maybe a Terminus, honestly even Fernando lately, considering what we've seen him able to do, to contest that Inara that was then picked up on the other side on the point, just made things a little too difficult for Interstellar to really crack down and steal away an objective from Yoinkers, save for the comeback mechanic fight. So keeping that in mind, I think Ashe as an off-tank, honestly even trying to contest point is solid, but you also need someone who's going to be able to stand there right in front of the Inara and not care.
You need someone that can contest, and really they left the mid open, basically the whole map last time. So now, Gore, we're moving on to map 2. It'll be Jag Falls this time around. And Jag Falls, I think at least you always are telling me this is perhaps the most standard you can play it, though it does allow a couple more things to come into viability than we normally see. Do you expect we'll still see the same stuff, Ruckus, Rom, Vivian getting banned, or will things change up here a little bit? Ruckus obviously will stay.
Yeah. I actually think because of how similar this map is to Brightmarsh in terms of some of the playstyles, you could just run the same 4 bans back. I think if you're Interstellar, you then want to shift up your picks and bans, but maybe you ban something else like a Genos away, in terms of the Shaolin. Maybe you start to shift some things up for the supports. Maybe now you're forced to ban Vivian if you don't want Yoinkers to get it because they went ahead and banned the Victor themselves, which makes me wonder a little more about what Yoinkers have going into this. The Victor, it's not often that you get to say, hey, Prosper, we are going to ban your god, or champion. We're going to take him out of here. We're taking him gone. Get him out of here. Unless you're going to pick up something like a Vivian.
And then they do ban the Shaw. That's wild. I mean, Yoinkers could certainly just take Vivian here and feel really good about it. I would think perhaps maybe this is Interstellar trying to say you have to pick between your backline and your Inara. We won't give you both, but I don't think Yoinkers are going to sweat it too much here, Gore. They will indeed just take the Vivian. I suppose if Interstellar want the Inara, it is now theirs, but I don't know how worth it is.
No, this I think is a very easy decision. The one thing that could kill something like a Vivian or like an Inara very easily, or the Inara, you're going to pick up Vivian every time. The Inara is still going to cause some trouble and still be a little bit of a nuisance, but not so much that you're really stressed out about it. I think this is going to be great. Plus, Yoinkers, again, banning out something like that Victor. Either you're getting that Sha Lin that Interstellar are banning, which at this point feels like it might be a target ban, or, and I wouldn't be surprised if they pick up something like the Buck, the Andro maybe on this map, or a Koga, a Lex that have also been very prominent here. We lived in a world where Moji was picked and banned on this map for a while, so I do think any of the flanks can really show up and make a case for themselves.
I like this, though. Interstellar making a big adjustment. They're taking the Genos this time around instead of that Corvus, trying to keep that Luminary away from Yoinkers. But now Yoinkers have the Ashe, perhaps just the best off-tank. I mean, obviously, Ruckus and Rom earning some attention here, but Ashe so versatile alongside that assert dominance, and now they're adding in the Atlas, too. A complete reversal here from Yoinkers in terms of what they're valuing this time around on Jag Falls. They do get the Vivian at the top. They prioritize the damage again, but now they're shipping away those two off-tanks from Interstellar, perhaps daring them to try and run that single tank Inara strat and saying they have an answer to beat it.
Well, and the thing is as weird as it might be, it's a little different when your Yoinkers in this position just because you have the Vivian. I think Vivian is just a glorified tank killer. I think she's going to be really solid here. But I love this. I don't even care about the rest of the picks and bans. It's Pip time, baby. Forget everybody else. Forget all the notes. Yoinkers may be favored to win. Who cares? Pip is my favorite champion in this game, save for Bomb King and probably Inara, which are the ones that I play the most. But, I mean, one of my favorite ultimates to be able to see, and specifically here against Ashe, Atlas, Vivian, you know, not a lot of easy getaway, not instantaneous, hey, I'm out of this ult, I'm out of your range, you can't lock us down. I actually think this is going to be really good against Yoinkers' composition. There is the downside that he's much like Barrack, kind of a walking head, and there's a lot of hit scan on the other side, so there's maybe some easy headshots. But there's a lot of hope, at least in my heart, for this Pip to do well.
Interesting. They're going to go with the Andro Koga sort of double flank as their damage dealers. Then, I mean, you got to consider Pip a part of that, right? Not part of the Genos support in the backline. So we'll see if they can make it work. It is indeed going to be that single tank over there for Interstellar. And I think Yoinkers, I don't know, Gore, they might have gotten really exactly what they wanted here this time around. They ban away that Victor that puts Interstellar in a spot where they pick between the Inara, the Vivian, or the Shaw as the ban. They didn't know where to go. They banned the Shaw. Now Yoinkers have this double frontline comp with a Knessa Vivian backline.
Now, I'm going to say Yoinkers has a lot to live up to. You roll back to the days of the PGS, the Global Series. There was one player that I saw consistently who would bring snipers. It was usually Strix, but Knessa, I think, can fall under the same umbrella. Onto something like Jag Falls and make it work. They were Valentine. A lot of players, where people now would probably remember them as Ninum that played for Kanga, like became a very prominent player throughout the world stage. And I have to say, I think there's a lot to live up to in terms of bringing snipers out on this map. There's a reason you don't see them often. They can really mainly contest statue side, and even then it's a little shaky, it must be some, I want to say, calculated counter here for Yoinkers, specifically in dealing with the Andro, maybe in helping deal with the Pip as well. But it's going to be an interesting pick, nonetheless. Whether or not it works, it's almost entirely execution-based.
Well, Jag Falls, where we're heading for this map number 2 this time around. Yoinkers got to show us if they can get the win with that triple DPS, as well as this time around with that double tank frontline composition. So they'll head over to this right side first. to like see if they can win some ground over there. They end up realizing there's not much to do. Prosper comes in, does exactly what he's meant to do, puts a bunch of damage into the Zanara and leaves. I'll be back later to do the rest, don't you worry. Now contesting more on this right side, wherever this Inara's going, it looks like he wants a sightline there so he can put some decent damage into her, but now forced to retreat. The Koga barcode able to close the gap and get the kill. Yes, the Corvus ends up punching him in return. Etsu back on the point challenging this Inara, but now the Pip down as well. Stop banning, unable to find anything as Friezo gets 2 kills to start this off for them with this Corvus. Now Goodlad able to come over to provide the flank. Snaze ends up falling on the point, and now they've got this mid-control in favor of Yoinkers. Kanessa can just come to the left and look for sightlines.
And the fact that Inara just now respawning, just now getting back into any sort of capabilities for engagement, with Goodlad potentially going for dismounts, although kind of takes a peek away from when they could potentially burn the Inara down. But again, it kind of showcases it. And much like you have to get your Brightmarsh in while you can, Prosper has to get this Vivian in while he can, because she's getting a pretty big nerf in the next patch. But she's doing her job, which is killing the Inara. It's something that Interstellar just struggled with all last game.
And Logi kills everybody else. A double for the Kanessa. Trouble now for the Pip, as he cannot escape the wrath either. 3 dropping down for Logi. Yoinkers taking the mid win as well. And now they're in the 1-0 position here, Gorn. Feeling pretty good about what they can do. Look where this Kanessa already is. Has the end game sightline that's normally guaranteeing you a conversion to keep Interstellar pinned in. That means free cart rolling the entire of the way up. And Interstellar don't even know where to go from here. They're stuck behind cover, trying to figure out the best way to move out, bunker bust Logi, and move him off this position he has that is so dominant. But every second it takes him to figure this out is a second lost, a second in favor of Yoinkers.
I mean, that's exactly, at this point, maybe the issue, right? Yoinkers, every single second they're gaining, they're getting past some of the more difficult to push through choke points, and they're not meeting much resistance in those areas. So we'll have to see if they can keep that up. That's just an unfortunate place to get unexiled there for stop banning.
Certainly is. Prosper gets that kill now. All to do here for Snaze, and he just cannot do it. That's the conversion. That's why that aggressive zone was so important, Gore, because it got them all the way up through that arch for free, and then they just won the fight once they got there. One of the easiest conversions you'll ever see.
Now, I did not come into this expecting a 6-0-5 Kanessa. So I'm going to go ahead and put that one out there. But that, in essence and in theory, was what I was trying to say Yoinkers could do, or I'm sorry, Interstellar could do in Game 1, right? When Ashe and Atlas just kind of stop caring about playing the objective, and they leave that to their support. You know, poor Corvus has to sit back there on the payload while the rest of the team just goes up there and decides to kill you, just on cooldown when you respawn.
From the back. Go
and
guys.
Man, as much as I love Pip, and I think this Evil Mojo can play a big role here, I don't know, I feel like the ults on Yoinkers, just as a suite in terms of control, are going to help them around the mid-fight a little bit more. I'd love to be proven wrong here. I want Pip to find his way back into the meta. Maybe this is the Proving Grounds game to showcase why he can do it, just with one good ult.
Well, poor Snaze didn't realize that Logi had posted up, walks out into the scope and catches the damage. Barcode gets a much-needed return kill on the Goodlad, though, but remember, they're two-pronged in this department. Etsu is still doing the frontline responsibilities here for Yoinkers. Interstellar, until they get this Inara back, don't have an answer. Etsu assert dominance right on to the stop banning. Almost enough to get the kill, but the Pit makes it out of there. A-OK. And really, Yoinkers did not get that much percent built up in the meantime, but Etsu gets the kill onto Infly into double as he shuts down stop banning as well. Etsu making the Ashe look pretty darn good as they able to push forward and reclaim the mid.
And Pip died there right as he was about to shoot the Evil Mojo. So he does still maintain his ult, comes back into this, and still has it available. But they might have just lost too much time that there's no real chance for him to use it.
Evil Mojo comes out. That is enough for them to control Etsu here in mid, but 93% for Yoinkers. They've lost control, though. Interstellar have it now with the Inara planted firmly on the point. Prosper took care of stop banning. Their strat of kill everyone else needs to be working as Prosper gets rid of my ADC. Now looking to see if he can find the last cone. Let's go. Good. Of course he can. With the Sentinels up, that's a triple. Snaze ends up dropping, and that is all they wrote for the mid-fight. 3 in a row now for Yoinkers because there's just no way Interstellar can make it back.
I mean, I will say, Pip,
no, they can't.
As much as that ult comes through, yeah, Invil is able to get back there. Not really for long and not able to do enough on his own, but at least buy some time. But, you know, you look at that Evil Mojo, and this is where things get really awkward. Evil Mojo, for a single target, if it's someone like an Inara who really is difficult to die, it's very good. I think Ashe is still a good target because it brings him down to 1500 health, becomes much more manageable to kill. Easier than an Eevee at that point. But it is that awkward, I want to say maybe disappointing moment as the Pip player when you recognize that I had this great ult, I was going to be able to set it up, maybe find 2 or 3 people the first time, and then I died, and because of our having to hold a defense, could only get 1 person afterward. We couldn't really find that much utility with it. And now it's the same story as before. Yoinkers just in control. All of the hit scan damage that they're dealing, maybe too much to deal with, and kind of overwhelming for Interstellar. The tanks are able to get up and create a lot of space. Once again, this Kinessa just sits back and doesn't worry about anything. And Vivian, Prosper's on a 16th streak. He doesn't care about anything in the world right now.
No, he absolutely does not. Good lad was excellent for them just now in that post-cap situation, getting him a ton of extra ground earned and keeping his team alive. So now Logi is posted up, doing the damage again to this Inara. I thought we said that was going to be the Vivian's job. Well, Logi pays for it as the damage comes his way, but doesn't matter if you get 2 kills. If Yoinkers just cap, all of a sudden that's 4-0 in a row, and they're 2-up open the set.
I mean, that was one of those moments where you invest maybe too much away from the objective. You got to get to that Kinessa, right? So you have to send a couple of people back there. But that's 2 people 30 feet away from where the payload is that are not going to be contesting it. And then the Corvus ults get dropped right in the right area, again, to control who's going to be able to enter this zone. If you're any of the carries, anyone that's not Snaze at that point, you're going to take too much damage, you get slowed too much that you're guaranteed to die. If you are Snaze, well, you just died anyway, so you're not really going to be able to do too much. I think that was kind of the textbook. Again, you roll it back, if you look at Yoinkers, maybe just trying to show Interstellar how it's done. That's what you have to do against a triple DPS composition. Granted, you also get some of the strongest DPS in the game, at least in terms of Vivian, one of the most favored right now. Logi has a really good game on this Kinessa, and it's definitely something I'm going to have to remember as the weeks go on, that Yoinkers are able to bring out on Jag Falls and make it look good.
They are, and this double flank strategy did not seem to work. Neither the Koga nor the Andro could find much paydirt when they were looking around out there. They did show us the one Evil Mojo ultimate that did get rid of 1 tank relatively quickly, but they just couldn't do much with that time. And so Yoinkers, despite having given up the triple DPS, were able to be the more aggressive composition this time. It felt like Interstellar spent so much time playing defense, and their comp is just not meant to do that at all. They could not win a mid-fight, and they couldn't get their feet underneath them on defense, and Yoinkers now very comfortably 2-0 up in this set. And maybe their feet up on the desk as well, as they're just wondering where Interstellar are going to take them next for this next one.
Yeah, that's the downside. When you build a comp that is all about, well, kind of out-aggressing the opponent, and then you get out-aggressed, yeah, it falls apart for them. And it feels like Yoinkers kind of understand. It feels like this is a fundamental understanding. Like in picks and bans, they have just enough champions under their belts to be able to bounce back and forth. And I know it's going to be easy to meme, at least Prosper, because at this point he has played Victor and Vivian, very similar styles. I think last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, I was calling him a hit scan main as opposed to a one trick there for, you know, like a Victor or anything like that. But he also, it's the same thing we were saying, what, a year ago, 2 years ago? Every time we've watched Prosper regularly rise to the top of whether it was the console scene or here, just regularly in the pro circuit, if Victor is open or Vivian is open, we already know he's performing on him. He was performing on him before they were great. Now he's performing on him when they're great. And if you're going to let him have his signature picks, he's not going to shy away from it. At least he owns up to it.
No, he's absolutely not. And I think until it stops working, it'd be hard to criticize him on it, right, Gore? I mean, it's looking pretty darn good. So Yoinkers sitting comfortably in the 2-0 spot. Obviously, Interstellar being the first pick and also choosing where we go for this one after having a lot lost. So Stone Keep will be that answer. And I'm curious about which Yoinkers we're going to see this time. We saw the triple DPS on Brightmarsh. We saw the double tank on Jag Falls. So what do they want here on Stone Keep to try and figure out how to put Interstellar to bed, if that is going to be what happens at all? Interstellar bounced back on Brightmarsh, so we know they got some fight in them. We just did not see it there on Jag Falls.
Well, I was going to say I think having a Ruckus on your side would be very helpful here, but I have to get that out of my mind. It's one of those things, as off-tanks go, Ruckus is one of my favorites. He's up there with Ashe in terms of the pressure that he can provide, but
Yeah.
again, and what, in North America, Brazil, no one plays him, and in Europe, he's banned every game because of how they play. And there's a reason. I'm going to have to roll it back, but when you look at the teams that have won almost every world championship, they've had a good Ruckus player on their back. So I'm saying right now, North America, Brazil, got to get everything together, figure out your whatever's going on, start bringing out Ruckus. That's where my beliefs are, at least for them as of right now. But here, Interstellar already off to a good start. You get Ruckus Jr., which in my mind is Vivian, right? Still has a good shield, maybe not as big, maybe not as tanky, but does the same amount of damage. Doesn't have Hexafire, but has Sentinels. You take some of the pluses, some of the minuses, and you push them together, and you get Vivian there. And so I think she's going to be fine. Curious to see, like, Yoinkers are going to go with what I was going to answer your question with, how to deal with Interstellar, an off-tank plus Inara. I just didn't expect Atlas. I was thinking it was going to be Ashe there instead.
Yeah, I feel like they're risking potentially giving up Victor and Vivian. I mean, I don't know if Interstellar want to run that opportunity, but with the Corvus Genos band away, they're all going to have to go somewhere different for support, and those two both backline damage dealers are available. I get what Yoinkers are doing. They're taking the Atlas and Aura and thinking, well, you got Vivian, we'll just pick up Victor later on. But perhaps there is some risk in this strategy, but I think that diminishes when we see this Androxus come on through alongside now the Damba. So obviously the risk is gone, and Yoinkers able to get away with taking those two priority tanks right away.
I actually really like that Damba pickup in terms of what synergizes well with Inara, hurts Vivian in terms of her ability to kill Inara. I think Damba's maybe my #1 support up there. You could also throw something like, I don't know, a Ying, maybe even Furia, although she hasn't made her way across the pond. She's only been over there, I think, in North America lately. But, you know, you just need a lot of healing for this Inara to make sure she can withstand the damage onslaught from Vivian. So there's still some other supports for you. But Damba, I cannot get over how good Dread Serpent is as an ability in the right hands.
Yeah.
It is game-changing. And so I think Interstellar have a good call stealing that away instead of going for the Victor. Still kind of ends up hurting him because the Victor ends up going there for Yoinkers. But, you know, you have to win some, lose some.
And they decide that they're not willing to run that double backline composition with the Victor Vivian, so they'll just take the Damba, get a priority support, priority flank in this Andro as well, though Yoinkers might have been planning on getting this Eevee anyway, if that's where they're going to go in a world where Andro is taken. So now Interstellar is still able to come up with a decent double frontline comp, right? Terminus and Ashe as your 9th pick does not feel bad, and Terminus great into this Victor too. This might be the best we've seen Interstellar come into one of these games with a comp here. How do you feel about it?
I really like this draft. I mean, it's maybe except for the Vivian and Andro, it is kind of like the B-tier squad, right? Like you're coming in with not the best in role, but a lot of, you know, champions that are still really good at what they do. I think Damba, Terminus, Ashe have all proven that they're able to be at the top of the list for anybody. With a Vivian and Andro, there's a lot of damage. But I am a little nervous. I think Vivian and Andro are going to have their head turned on a swivel because of Eevee. As long as Yoinkers bring in a very solid set of Eevee plays, that already is going to be a deficit for them. That was a Ying, you know, locked in there at the very end. So you have this Illusory Rift ultimate that's going to be able to come in handy whenever you need that extra burst of healing for a team fight. So looking at round 2, round 3, if we make it to round 4, it's just going to be very difficult, I think, for Interstellar to overcome that. Luckily, Sentinels help deal with damage. This one is the most even I think we've had going into game.
Certainly is. Yoinkers is going to have their work cut out for this one, unlike what we just saw happening on Jag Falls, where they found the 4-0 in a position where they could put this set to bed with a win here on Stone Keep. So far, everything looking about how we would expect, though, with these talents, nothing particularly crazy. And they're right out of the action. Stone Keep from map number 3, and Interstellar are stacking up Keep side. It would seem everyone coming here. The Inara comes out to the point right away, with one more member of Yoinkers going over to Church. So it'll be a battle. What can Interstellar do with this high ground that they now have? A full flank is going to be the call. They'll run into Prosper way in the back, and they'll absolutely put him in the dirt. Logi can't stay standing either. Now they do manage to get one kill going their way for Yoinkers. They take care of stop banning. Now they can come back and contest mid where the tanks are left without any damage to support them, and they'll melt Etsu on the Inara. Interstellar looking great with the flank through Keep that opened up the mid control.
I'll be honest, of all the names that I was expecting to see on the Inara, Etsu maybe wasn't one of them. I was about to compliment Goodlad for sitting there and getting 57%, but he's over there on the Atlas as of right now. That's going to be the match here for Interstellar. So they're able to catch up, but Prosper has now come in, taken the high ground. You know, this is one of those areas where typically I'm talking about Bomb King, why he's so good and controlling in that area, especially if you have something like a Victor that you're opening it up for. But Prosper's just doing it himself.
Yeah, damn near a triple for Prosper coming through on the back of this mid-fight. That's enough for Yoinkers to cap the objective. And it kind of feels like after the way that keep opening went, Prosper said, okay, maybe I go keep side this time and see if it works for him. And it absolutely does.
I mean, again, he's someone that when you're on something like a Victor, maybe a Strix, a Kinessa, etc., someone that is typically a backline and is supposed to hang out, you're supposed to have a bodyguard. I mean, you're supposed to have these two tanks that are distracting for you, creating space for you, a flank that is drawing attention away from you, and you're just able to sit back there and free fire. And sometimes you do just have to pull up your boots, run in, and see what you can do on your own. And, well, I think Victor is one of the best. As simple as he is one of the only ones who can do some blast damage as well as that hit scan damage. A lot of presence that can come out from him. So I think just good call from Yoinkers to be able to run it kind of down right there to make sure they get control of keep. And now this payload's been moving incredibly fast. They've only gone, well, almost gone 90%, and they've only used a minute.
It's been going very, very quickly here for Yoinkers. They're already through that last archway. Now it's just a question of can they control it. Prosper in a battle up against the Vivian, and the shield's coming out the better. Barcode wins it, but Etsu returns the favor. Logic gets a kill on the Invalive, but that one gets returned by Stop Banning, so 2 for 2 should favor the defense here in this situation as Yoinkers can't afford to step forward and gain more ground. I say that, but Frizo and Etsu are still trying to put in a work, seeing how much they can push this cart forward. Now they will get stalled out here as the Terminus makes his way back through. Goodlad has to lose his high ground that he had been enjoying and now stuck, but he can just rewind back up there. Hello, I'm back. Gives it up right away and rejoins his squad back down below. Invali eventually kills him as Prosper takes care of Barcode.
This is where Prosper comes in, though. You get Logi to lock people down. Goes up, fires one shot with the barrage, and it's just enough to get rid of Invil's health bar. Now they're looking to try and burn down one more tank to get this forward.
This is very close to enough. The reanimate has to come through to stop the conversion from happening, but he dies instantly. That reanimate ends up wasted, and Yoinkers control the map. That's now 6 in a row. 7 if you want to count winning way back on Brightmarsh, and then the 4-0 that happened on Jag Falls right afterwards, and now the 2-0 here. It's been dominance from Yoinkers.
That, As a frontline man, I just have to pay respects, man. I mean that's like your Terminus.
Reanimate,
you know
die.
you're gonna try to defend it. You're gonna pop your reanimate. 4K damage drop. This is it, baby. Oh, I'm dead again. You didn't even get to do anything, and that's just the unfortunate side effect I think that comes through when you're in that position. I also had to say, shout-outs to Frizo, because right now, this Ying, the Illusory Rift helps them be as aggressive as they were. I mean, they got into the courtyard kind of surprisingly fast to me. I thought they were going to hit the archway and stall out, but they were in the courtyard before things started to slow down for them. Illusory Rift lets them stay aggressive, and then throughout all of that time, oh, that's right, charges it up again and has it ready for the round. And that's a good Hail Mary for Hetsu. Just to try and get some stun. I'm surprised to see Yoinkers maybe not as focused on keep side as they would have been considering the flank last time, but it's working out for them. Look at the 66% they've raised.
Yeah, Interstellar just didn't push all the way through this time. Prosper gets the 1v1 win up against Invali because of course he does. And now the keep fight going their way too. They're at 96% and everyone's stuck inside, losing the battle here. Prosper rips through everybody. They're stuck trying to heal, and it's just not going to end up being enough damage. Everyone goes down. Basically a full wipe there for Yoinkers. And they're just going to keep right on going. Interstellar now in 2 maps have not been able to come up with a way to stall out this momentum.
Yoinkers, to me, have something that, again, a lot of good teams are going to be able to do, but it's kind of like this cascading effect of who's affecting the fight the most, right? Every now and then you'll see Logi step up, and then you'll see it be Prosper, and then you'll see... They just constantly are shuffling who it is that's kind of the driving force behind them, which gives that ebb and flow of a team that recognizes this is where my burst of good is going to be, then I have to fall back. Now you can go in and use yours, then I can go in and use mine, right? And just making sure they get that right balance. Finally, we're seeing some pushback from Interstellar, but again, it's only a little bit of a clapback. I'm actually, again, surprised to see a barrage come down when no one else is nearby Prosper. But I think this is just the power of Yoinkers. They understand their own strength.
They've been willing to use these ultimates as Barcode trying to find a kill from the back. Can't do it as Prosper continues to be the first, second, and last problem that Interstellar have to deal with. Logi trying to see if we can find any more kills breaking through this aggressive zone as Infali will end up falling. So the cart did slow down much more than we saw last time around, where they got to the courtyard, as you said, basically for free beyond that final archway choke point that normally is so daunting here on Stone Keep, especially with someone like Vivian who can make use of that great sight line. But here they are, 50 seconds left, and rolling right on through. Friezo backing up his Inara that's already made their way through. Good Lad is up top trying to contest that top side point, but there's normally so many problems. The Dread Serpent has come out, the Eevee's buying time, and perhaps they can get the better of Stop Banning. They absolutely do. Infali falls as well. Now some damage being weaved through as Snazy falls as well, and suddenly with only 2 members standing, Yoinkers can perhaps find a way to get this conversion. Snazy uses the reanimate, dies again for the 4th member to fall in this skirmish, and he the only one to do it twice. Prosper doesn't even have anyone to hit with the barrage as the Yoinkers find the 4 for 0.
That is not only, I think, Prosper personified, that is exactly what he's like when you get to meet him. He's a really nice guy, really fun guy, but I think that is also the best way to end this set, right? That is the most this set note that I've seen, where here's my ult. Okay, no one to look at. And then he just turns up, starts spinning around. At that point, you know that you're that far ahead. I think Yoinkers, again, they just played that really well from top to bottom. It seems like they understand not only their strengths, but their bursts. Logi is a menace, apparently, on Kinessa, on Jag Falls, and on this Eevee. I think this is something that we don't get to see too often from Logi, but when it comes out, it works out well. I don't have to talk about Prosper's Victor because I've done it enough over the last couple of years, so that kind of does it for itself. But I'm actually the biggest fan, I think, more than anything, of this Ying pick. I mean, look at that, 20,000 more healing throughout all of that. And you have to go back, if you watch that game a second time, for whatever reason you have, go watch how fast that ult is charging up. That's where the strength of Ying comes in. It's the reason her and Furia were some of the top picks for a long time. It's because not only is it a fast-charging ult, you get morale boost, you have it almost every fight when you need it, and then on top of it, you're getting, at least here for Ying, you're going to have constant healing coming through, which is great for your tank, Inara, who's going to soak it up well, but it's global for your team, so it doesn't matter where that Eevee is. It doesn't matter where Prosper is. You could have died as a support and be back in base. You pop that ult and you're going to be felt in a team fight no matter what. And I think that really helped open the door for them to just stay, I mean, almost bonkers aggressive this game. Yoinkers did not care about their health bars because they knew they had a good Ying behind them.
No, they didn't, man, and the fight just ended up being so fractured for Interstellar. I mean, you remember that initial keep fight that looked so good for them, where they pushed through, got the kill into Prosper, and were able to loop around, clean up on mid, and take control. But after that, it was scattered. It was all over the place, and Yoinkers come out looking like the much better team, though I don't think the gap is quite as significant as it looked there. 7-1 for Yoinkers, up there above everyone. Con Fiesta right behind. Interstellar now more comfortably in third, as opposed to when it was looking like maybe they had a chance to break through before that unfortunate L. Europe, everyone except Yoinkers pretty clumped up, second and fourth without that much space between them. But perhaps we'll end up seeing if that ends up being quite as contested as we think. The standings here in Europe and the rest of the regions all starting to find a little bit more clarity as we get towards the end here of this phase. Brazil will be the one that is up next. In Control and Carnage will be the match that we're taking a look at for that one, Gora.
And again, I'm excited to see what they're going to be able to bring out. The players, the teams specifically in Brazil, again, it's kind of, even though they've lost maybe some of the more prominent members from what we've seen in the past there on Parallax Gaming, still escalated to the top. If you're looking at In Control, you're looking at Carnage, those are two teams that are trying to vie for that #1 spot, both very capable of doing so. This is actually going to be a really fun set to watch, just to see who can come out on top.
You know, I'm really looking forward to watching that one. I think I might even stick around, Gore, and just maybe cast that one too. We'll see. It'll all be happening on the other side of this quick break.